Hello and welcome. We are here to learn Magic the Gathering for Dummies. If you like the video, toss me a like, and remember, if you teach your kids how to play Magic, they won't have money or time for drugs. Alright, first thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to do my video all in Magic Arena, because it's very popular right now for learning Magic. It is completely free if you want it to be. If you don't, you are able to buy gems and you get coins in the game just by doing regular stuff, quests, and certain number of wins, etc. Alright, so for land, we have 5 types of land. Each type taps for that color of mana. So a plains taps for a white mana, like the white mana symbol down here. Island taps for blue mana, swamp taps for black mana, mountain taps for red mana, forest taps for green mana. Then you have other land that has different effects on it. Here you can pay for and sacrifice it to create some creatures. This land adds 1 colorless, so there are technically 6 kinds of land, but this one you can pay 3 of any color, tap it, and add a swamp, add a black mana for each swamp you control. So there are a couple different effects on a couple different lands. There are also lands that can tap for 2 colors, and it's not in standard right now, but there have been lands that tap for 3 colors. Alright, and so your land is going to be used to tap for mana to cast spells, which is pretty much anything in the game that's not a land. So anything that has a mana cost on it is going to be a spell. So and then we're going to talk about turns, phases during each turn. So in every turn, there's going to be 6 phases. The first phase is going to be, it's called the untap upkeep phase, and that's going to be, you untap all of your permanents. So this right here is a permanent, an enchantment, a creature is a permanent. Anything that you play and then stays on the battlefield is a permanent. Creatures tap for certain abilities. They also tap to declare attacks. This one you pay 8 and tap it to sacrifice it. Creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. This one you pay 1, tap it. The little symbol next to the plains right there is the tap symbol. So if anything has that symbol, it means it has a tap effect. So during your upkeep, you untap everything, all of your permanents. Then there's the upkeep phase, so you'll have certain effects that give something that happens during upkeep. Okay, then we have the main phase. The main phase is where you're going to be able to cast anything in your hand. So anything you put in your deck can be cast during your main phase. Then there's going to be the combat phase. During your combat phase, your creatures are able to attack. So real quick on the creatures, we want to point out that this creature costs 2 blue mana, so you would have to tap 2 islands, and then it says 2 in a circle, and that's going to be 2 mana of any color. So if you're running a blue-black deck, you can pay 2 islands and 2 swamps to pay for this card. At the bottom of the card in the right corner, you see where it says 4/4. That's going to be its power and toughness. The first 4 is how hard it hits. The second 4 is how hard it can get hit and stay alive. And then you see where it says creature. This one says Sphinx. So each creature is a different thing. So this creature is a vampire knight. And then there's the little symbol to the right of creature Sphinx that shows what set it came out of and its rarity. There are common, which is black, uncommon, which is silver, rare, which is gold, and mythic, which is orangish. It's like a reddish orange. Right here. Alright, so now back to combat. So during combat, you declare your attackers by tapping them. And when you declare attackers, you are always attacking your opponent or a planeswalker they control. We haven't talked about planeswalkers yet, but we will get there. It's not like Hearthstone where you can attack a creature. You're attacking your opponent. They can choose to block with their creature. If they don't, you just hit your opponent. Your opponent declares their blockers, the damage happens to both creatures. Alright, then we have a second main phase. This is the same as the first main phase, it's just you have a second opportunity to play anything in your hand. And then you have the end step. Certain things will say at your end step, Resplendent Angel says, if at the beginning of your end step you gain 5 or more life, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. So if during your turn you gained 5 or more life, you get a free creature. So during your end step, all the effects of the turn finish. So if somebody plays a card that says, all creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, at the end of that turn, all those creatures, that effect will stop happening because it finishes resolving. All creatures' power and toughness is restored. Alright, now we're going to talk about the different types of spells. So there are 6 basic types. 4 of them are permanents, which we mentioned earlier. 2 of them are non-permanents. Number 1, creatures. Unfortunate that the first screen when I type in creature only has 2 creatures, but that's alright. Alright, so our first creature right here is going to be a 1 cost, 1/1 with lifelink. So certain creatures have different abilities. Lifelink says whenever damage dealt by a creature or spell with lifelink also causes its controller to gain that much life. Charmed Stray has a second ability that says when it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control named Charmed Stray. Alright, next we have enchantments, which we already know there's one right here. This enchantment says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. An artifact is going to be much the same. This is a legendary artifact, which means you can only have 1 of them on the battlefield. Anything that says legendary on it means you could not possibly play 2 of these. This one has a tap effect, add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control. So again, most artifacts are going to have some sort of ability on them like this. Others will be artifact equipment, so they're going to work like an enchant creature spell, which we'll look at here in just a second. Here's another artifact that's pretty popular right now. Fountain of Renewal, costs 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life. You can pay 3 and sacrifice it to draw a card. Alright, next we have Planeswalkers. And those are going to be different, and they're a little difficult to explain. So a Planeswalker enters with a certain number of loyalty counters. So we see on Gideon Blackblade here, he enters with 4 loyalty counters. He has a static ability that says, as long as it's your turn, Gideon Blackblade is a 4/4 human soldier creature with indestructible that's still a Planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to Gideon Blackblade during your turn. He has a +1 ability, that means you're going to put a loyalty counter on Gideon Blackblade, and give 1 creature you control lifelink, indestructible, or vigilance until the end of the turn. And you can see to the right of the card it explains what indestructible, lifelink, and vigilance are. Then, once Gideon Blackblade has 6 loyalty counters on him, you can remove 6 counters and destroy Gideon to exile target non-land permanent. Typically what people will do is go up to 7 so that they can -6 and keep Gideon alive. And then every other Planeswalker has other abilities. So this is an uncommon Planeswalker, where this is a mythic, so it only has a minus ability. But its static ability is really good. Static ability is, each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. Then you can take 2 loyalty counters away, or -2, and look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal a non-creature, non-land, and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Next, we have sorceries. So a sorcery is something that can only be cast during your main phase. An instant is the same as a sorcery, but can be cast at any point. It doesn't have to be during a main phase, doesn't have to be during combat, it can be at any point unless an effect dictates that you can't. And card text always overrules game rules. So for example, we have what I call Baby Teferi right here. Each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. So you would not be able to play an instant outside of your main phase, because during your main phase is the only time you can cast a sorcery. And then his +1 is add 1 loyalty counter, is until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash, which means now your sorceries can be cast at instant speed, where your opponent can only cast things during their main phase. So now we'll talk about starting the game. During a regular game of Magic, a paper game, each player rolls a series of dice. Sometimes it's only one, sometimes it's four. It's just whatever the players agree on. And the highest roller goes first. The player who goes first does not draw a card during their draw step, but every turn after that, both players would draw a card on that player's draw step. Alright, so we are going to go ahead and play a game so I can show you what a typical game looks like. I believe we have a little bit of everything in here. We've got 22 creatures, we've got 5 instants, 2 sorceries, 2 artifacts, 3 enchantments, 5 planeswalkers, and 22 land. The reason we run 22 land is because we have quite a bit of ramp up here. So we've got add a mana here, we've got add mana here, add mana here. This is an enchantment that whenever a creature I control becomes targeted by an opponent, I get to draw a card. So there's at least a little upside to people destroying my creatures. Then I've got target creature fights a creature I don't control. Return to nature, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Vivian's Arcbow says pay X. X can be any number I want it to be. Discard a card. Look at the top X cards where X is the same number as the number I paid. And put a creature card with converted mana cost X or less onto the battlefield, and put the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. Then I've got Marwyn. It's just for extra mana generation, mostly. Whenever an elf enters the battlefield, I put a counter on Marwyn, and then I tap it to add mana equal to his power. Then I have Nissa, who will turn forests into creatures, and untap them as well. So if I have Vivian's Arcbow out and I need Nissa to get me a lot of mana because maybe Marwyn just hasn't gotten where I need him to go, Nissa can help me get there. Carnage Tyrant, Trample, Hexproof. So we talked about some of the abilities creatures have. This one has 2. Trample says that any damage that is dealt in excess of a blocking creature goes to the player or planeswalker. Hexproof says that Carnage Tyrant can't be targeted by an opponent's spells. And Carnage Tyrant also says it can't be countered. And can't abilities always outweigh can abilities. So if something says counter target spell, it can't be countered, Carnage Tyrant overrides that because it was on the stack first. Alright, so, and we'll get into the stack and more advanced things later. Palaka Worm is 7/7 trample. When it enters, you gain 7 life. When it dies, draw a card. Verdant Sun's Avatar. Whenever he or another creature enters the battlefield, I gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Then Vivian's Invocation, pay 7. Look at the top 7 cards. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When a creature is put onto the battlefield this way, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature an opponent controls. And then I've just got 1 Galta in here. Alright, we're gonna go see how it works. Alright, this is a pretty good opener for us. Turn 1 we can play Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Marwyn, turn 3 Paradise, and put a counter on Marwyn. So you notice that we did not draw a card because we are the first player. So we can play 1 land per turn, and then I played my creature. And then this game automatically passes to your opponent's turn once you have nothing else you can do. So since we're at 3 mana, we can play Marwyn. And now he's in a position where he either has to deal with Marwyn or can Thought Erasure. He seems like a Thought Erasure kind of deck. Alright, search for Escanta means he gets to look at the top card of his library every turn and decide if he wants to put it in the graveyard. But Vivian kills enchantments. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. Because I don't want to give him card advantage, especially since most blue-white decks are also running black. And if he's not pulling any black mana, there's the black mana. So now I'm just going to plus up Vivian. Look at the top
The
4
wilds
cards,
are my
reveal a
shield.
creature, and put it in my hand. And I'm going to go ahead and reveal... Which one? I think I'm going to reveal Galta. Yeah. Because then I can play the Paradise Druid. And I can go ahead and play Marwyn. Even though it is legendary, and the legendary rule says I can't have 2 Marwyns. So I'm just going to play it so that it enters the battlefield. And then I'm going to select this one to keep. And it's going to get the additional counter. And because of that, Galta is going to cost less mana. So now Galta only costs 6. He's in a position where he can either destroy all creatures, which he can't do right now, or he has to deal with Vivian, or he can start doing stuff to me.
Just the trick for this.
Okay, so he's playing Narset. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card a turn. So now I have no more card draw, no more additional card draw. Not that I really needed it anyway.
You can't stop nature.
Life gain really means nothing to me because he's not going after my life total. So I think I'm going to try for Vivian's Invocation. First I'm going to take care of their Narset.
Such violence is upsetting.
No creatures. Wow, in the top 7. That's pretty rare in a green deck. Especially a green deck that's running as many creatures as I am. Alright, so one thing I like about MTG Arena is the ability to scoop like that, where if you know you've lost and you're just not getting the card draws you need, you can just hit escape and click concede. Another thing I really like is if an opponent wastes all their timeouts, they're just trolling. They have to eventually just automatically concede. So that's really nice. And we still haven't been able to see an enchant creature spell. So I'm just going to find one real quick just to illustrate it. Okay, so it's going to say enchantment aura right here. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't block and its activated abilities can't be activated. So you would put this on your opponent's creatures. And then something you would put on your creature would be right here. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2. Thank you for sticking around and watching Magic the Gathering for Dummies. I hope it was as fun for you as it was for me. If you liked the video, go ahead and drop me a like. If you learned a lot and would like to learn some more from me, go ahead and leave me a follow, and I will be creating Magic for Not So Dummies and Magic for No Longer Dummies. And hopefully everyone can learn together and have a good time. In the meantime, hope you have a good day.